Sorry, what's it called?
Live reload?
Yes, I have.
Is it worth my $13?
No, you shouldn't have to pay for it.
Thought I checked.
It's an open source project, so if you're paying for it, somebody's cashing in on that one.
But that would be the Mac store.
Ah, fantastic. Yeah, no. That live server, the thing I put links up for, is just as good as Live Reload. And works a little better.
Are those links?
They're in the resources. So if you go to Blackboard, 1Password's the only thing you should ever spend money on. Thing's fantastic. I love 1Password. We use it at work too because it actually has teams. So say I want to share a password with all of you so that we all have connection to this one thing, we can actually share that password amongst our team, which is pretty cool. It's under weekly learning, resources, fillers. I use iTerm for my terminal. So I don't use the Mac terminal anymore at all. I use iTerm. And then I use, with that, I have a flavor on it called ZSH that I use with it. Just makes it a little nicer. It actually syntax highlights for me in the terminal, which is kind of nice. Text Expander. Text Expander is fantastic because with Text Expander you can do stuff like this. Let me pull this up here. iTerm. Yeah, iTerm. So Text Expander gives me this ability. I can type in a very short snippet, hit my pipe character, and fill it out with whatever snippet I want. But it goes further than that. If I have a snippet, I can actually set variables in it and be like, fill those variables in, and then it will go through and put my data in and stuff. It's fantastic. And then the other one, I did pay for this, but it was worth it, is, come on, you gotta move. How do I move it? There we go. This thing. This is called Alfred. It's a clipboard manager. So I can actually, everything I ever copy and paste sits in here. So I can go and copy like 6 things and then open up Alfred and paste them. One at a time. Yeah. I'd say those 3 things are the handiest things I use. Alrighty, we might as well get started. Okay, so last week we finished off with, we were working on the second part of the DOM stuff. And we talked a little bit about objects. We're just going to finish off the extra little bit that we have here. And then I'll let you do part 2 of your lab, so you'll have time to do that. And then after that, we will do a quiz, which will cover this stuff. So you guys get a bit of an advantage over the Thursday group because instead of having like a full week between you when you learn this stuff and to your quiz, you get to do your quiz right away. So that is kind of convenient. But yeah, and then after that, we're going to work on more object stuff. Basically the basics about objects. We're going to talk about properties and methods, how to create our own objects, how to add methods to those objects, and then also how to create something called an object constructor, which is essentially, it is not the same thing, but you will find it very similar to classes and working with classes. And then next week, we'll be doing prototyping, which is, like once you learn prototyping, you become JavaScript rock stars. You get to do all this really cool stuff with JavaScript after that. And then we'll be into APIs, and then if we have time after that, hopefully we'll get into maybe some Phantom.js or something, play around with some framework or whatever. All right. Okay, so let's load up Starter DOM Part 2. You should be on step 11 from last week. And I believe what we were doing last week is we were selecting elements on our HTML page. This thing looks like we colored the H1 pink. We changed its text. So let's just do a quick recap. So basically, our DOM is the document object model that we work with. It is a representation, it is an object representation of our HTML page, right? So every single HTML element on the page becomes a what? Becomes an object, exactly. And objects have 2 very important aspects to them. They all have properties and they all have methods, right? So the cool thing is when we grab an HTML tag off the page and it becomes the HTML element. Remember this thing? The capital HTML element.
I don't mind the middle word. That's
HTML element. That's our object instance, right? It's our class name. When it becomes that, it has a bunch of properties and methods. What are two very common methods that are on every single HTML element? They're on document, and they're very, very super important when we want to select other elements. Yes, query selector. And what's the one for selecting multiples? Query selector all, that's right. So those two things are very, very cool, very, very important. But we also took a look at some other stuff. Actually, did we get to that part? No, we didn't. We're going to take a look at a couple more properties that are based on the HTML element itself. So, just to recap where we are currently have selected the H1 element on the page, brought it back as an object using document.querySelector H1. Then we changed its text content. Text content is a property. That is a property of the HTML element. And we changed it to I changed this. You can literally call it whatever you want. Change this again. Bing. There we go. We changed the color. I did pink. Is there any other good colors? Navy? What is it? Is it dash?
Nope,
just one word? Ooh. It's almost turquoise.
It's almost turquoise, but with a hint of gray thrown in there.
Yeah. It's nice. Yeah, it's a very nice color. So yeah, and in order to do that, we use the .style, which is a property of the HTML element. And then style is an object as well, and it has properties and methods to it as well. And one of the properties it has is color. The cool thing about style is it's literally a representation of any CSS you can add to this element. So it contains background color, it contains font size, font family. Every single CSS thing you can think of is accessible through the styles tag, through the style object as properties that are on that object. The cool thing about that is it gives you a lot more control over what you're doing with your styling. You generally don't really style in JavaScript. But it can be handy when you're building things like games and stuff or doing some really funky stuff and you need to be able to programmatically change it. And then after that, we use the text content and we accessed it. And like I said before, H1 is an object. Text content is an object because it returns a string, which is an object. And string objects have a method on them called toUpperCase. They also have a method called toLowerCase. They have .length. They have a few different methods available to them. So we called that and we made our text uppercase, right? So if I wanted to change that to lowercase, I just go to lowercase. And there you go. Now it's all lowercase.
Can it do like to camel case?
Yeah, if it's available. Is it? I don't know if that's a thing. Yes, it is. No, or it broke. It broke. Yeah. The camel case is not a thing. Incidentally, if you wanted to know what were things, what you can do is you can go console.log h1.textContent, and it will load down here. And we need to change log to dir. No. How do I grab that string? Actually, you know what? The easiest way to do it? Just type in new string. Click the little arrow, and it will show you all the methods and properties. If I can figure out how to grab this thing so I can move it. Come on, let me move. Maybe I just need to go over here where it's... Oh, you are glitchy. There we go. Okay. Underneath this proto thing here, so proto, we're going to take a look at this next week, but proto is basically how we do inheritance. Proto will take an object, and that's exactly what's happening here. It's assigning the string object to this string object as the proto But the proto, if you click the little arrow beside it, it shows you all the methods and properties and methods that are available on that object. So things you can do. You can do .blink. I don't know what .blink does. Let's find out what .blink does. I bet you it's going to blink. Nope. It wraps it in the word blink. That seems really boring and annoying. There's characters at, there's fixed at, there's italics, so you can do .italics and make it just completely italics. Small, substring, 2 lowercase, 2 uppercase, and I thought I saw, oh no, that was a jQuery thing. There's a to snake case in jQuery, which I saw today. Our app, unfortunately, uses a lot of jQuery, a little too much. But, all right. Anyways, we'll leave that on blink. You can do whatever you want. Let's move to step 12. Any questions before we move to step 12? Yes?
So if I wanted to change it to italics and uppercase, would I be able to do that one?
You can chain it. So you should be able to go to blink dot, was it just italics like this? Yep. And then to uppercase. And you can just keep chaining like that. So basically the way chaining works, if you guys ever learned this in classes, if you return back your class, you can create chaining. If you return the context of this, you can create chaining. So basically the way it works is h1.dexContent.blink. In blink, what's happening is it's returning its current context. So it's returning this whole thing. It returns it. And then italics is like, cool, it takes it. And then it returns it. And then to uppercase does the same thing. It returns it. You can keep chaining forever, yeah.
So did Hunts not be put on there? Or
it is, except for all it did was wrap it in the I tag.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the use of this?
What, italics and blink?
No, yeah, it's just wrapping it in the italics tab.
I have no idea, to be honest with you.
Isn't this
Yeah.
like the exact same
They're probably old methods, but
what you don't want to do in HTML is like keep the thing you want to keep
Yeah.
all your styling in only the CSS and not like
and that's the thing, right? Like, so you running style, like using .style and using blink and stuff like that are not. This is not necessarily the place that you want to do this. Where to uppercase and to lowercase come in really handy. Actually, let me put that out to you guys. Where do you think to uppercase or to lowercase might become very, very handy?
Form handlers.
With what?
Form handlers.
And why? Why specifically?
So that we can normalize data in databases.
Fucking A, yes. To normalize data. Because there's no guarantee that what the user types in is going to be what you get. So if you're taking a postal code, my God, people will literally write absolutely everything. So what do you do on the back end? You strip out the spaces, you strip out the emojis, basically rip everything out that person has typed. And hopefully when you're done, you have a lowercase or uppercase string of a postal code that you can now insert into your database. All right, let's go to step 12.
I love the smiley face.
Select and store the first OL element in the HTML document. So OL tags, I did have somebody send me a message. I don't think you're in this class, so I think you're in the other class. What is an OL tag? An OL tag is an ordered list. UL is unordered list. So OLs will give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think they'll even do ABC if you change the list style. UL, just bullet points. That's all you get. It's little bullets. But you can change what they look like too. You don't have to necessarily use those bullets. All right, so let's grab the first OL. So I'm going to do const because we're never going to change the element because every time we grab an object, it's always passed by reference, not value. Let's call this first OL. Sounds like a Christmas song. First OL. Document, dot. And I only want to grab one. So what am I going to use?
Query selector.
That's right. Query selector. And what am I going to pass as a selector to grab the OL tag? OL in quotes. Single or double, your choice. Completely up to you. And I did write a console.log there if you want to uncomment it.
what's the difference between console.dir and console.log?
I honestly don't know. So console.log, anything with console is an object itself, right? Basically, console taps into your stream, right? So every programming language has access to an environment stream. Every single one, doesn't matter what it is. They all have access to an environment stream. You can change where that environment stream is going to files and stuff like that. In JavaScript, the environment stream that we're working with is the console terminal that's inside this thing. What's it called? A browser? Chrome. That's the one. The thing that's inside Chrome. That's our environment stream. Console.log gives us access to that. We can grab data from and we can pass data to. That's basically how that works. dir, I'm not sure what that is, except for when I use dir, it shows me the actual object itself in more depth. So I'm wondering if it might be like a verbose.
It's for displaying object properties.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What does dir stand for? Does it say?
No, I think it's display interactive or something.
Oh, okay, yeah. And there might be a few others too. Like those might be just two that I'm naming off. There might be a whole bunch of methods and properties. But if you want to know, I wonder if you can console. Let's find out. Console. There we go.
This guy says there isn't much difference between the two anymore.
And we'll increase the size. So it looks like there's assert, clear, context, count, count reset, debug, dir. There's a whole bunch of them. There's info. And that's interesting because even, like I said, all programming languages give you access, hopefully, to a stream of some sort that you can work with. C++ gives you the I/O stream, which will output to your console terminal if you're running it from the console terminal. I'm sure Java uses an I/O stream of some sort. PHP does, a whole bunch of them do.
That means directory.
Just means directory? Okay. Yeah, so like that is an interesting concept to know, the I/O stream. It's a very important thing. As programming analysts, you guys should know what the I/O stream is. Take a look at that in depth from an abstract way. Because it is in every language, look at it abstractly and what it does. Because it's how you're basically going to deal with, debugging and stuff like that at all times. All right. Incidentally, I found out if you hit Command-K inside the console, it will clear it. And if you're on Windows or Linux, because I now program in Linux for some bizarre reason, you can do Control-L. That's what my work uses. They use Linux boxes. Yeah. Linux's operating system from a GUI standpoint is a train wreck. I do not like it. All right, so we've selected our first OL. We printed it out to the screen, except for I cleared the screen. There's our OL object. We can see all the wonderful little properties and stuff inside of it. This thing is very handy. I used it about 15 times today as I was working in CoffeeScript and doing some crazy JavaScript stuff. Constantly opening this thing to see whether or not people have added methods to it or properties to it. It is very, very handy knowing how to spit the object to the screen because you can quickly find out what properties are available and what methods are available to you. So it is not something to just overlook and say, I'll never use that. Oh, you will. You'll use it a lot. Select and put a D beside that and there. Select and store the properties value that contains a node list. So if we look at this wonderful list of stuff, I realize it's probably not the easiest to start. There we go. Let's raise this up. Okay. You'll notice there's a few options here called child nodes and children. And they're properties. How do I know they're properties and not functions? Exactly. There's no little f, right? There's no little f, weird f character. They're just children nodes and children. So the difference is child nodes are returned when we use query selector all. We always get child nodes back, that property. But for backwards compatibility for get elements by tag name and get elements by class, we still have the children property as well. They are different. Child nodes is more verbose. It gives you a lot more information back because it doesn't just list the elements. It also gives you back all the text nodes too. Whereas child nodes will only give you, children will only give you back the topmost element, and then you actually have to drill down. And just to show you that these things inside these lists are HTML elements, if you click the little arrow beside them and click on, say, the li tag here, you can see it's got a whole DOM structure to it as well. And it's got children, so you can click on its children. And it currently has no children inside of it. Whereas with the child nodes, they're a little different because they structure a little differently. If you click on children and click on one of the LIs, you'll notice that you have a child node, but you have no more children under it. And in that node is the text element. And you can see the text. This one happens to be create a new object called person. And that particular one. All right. So that's fun. Let's go grab that list. So select and store the properties value that contains a node list. All right. So we are going to we're going to call this const children equals the first OL. There we go. Yeah, it sounds like a Christmas song. Children. I think I'm confusing it with Noel.
Yeah. But it fits.
It does. There we go. And when we spit it out, we get an HTML collection, but keep in mind, HTML collections are old. They're not deprecated, which is good, but things do become deprecated. Do you guys know what the word deprecated means?
Discontinued.
That's exactly what it means. It means discontinued. Things like that happen from time to time in languages, and you got to be aware of it. For example, JavaScript Proto, this accessor that they have is deprecated. And there's a big message. We're deprecating this. It's no longer going to be available. And eventually, all browsers will wipe it out. You won't have access to this property anymore and stuff like that. So you need to be aware that when things become deprecated, you have to support that thing that happens. That's one downfall to using JavaScript as a programming language versus other languages like, say, Ruby on Rails or PHP, because those languages you control, right? Because you guys control the server. You control the whole environment, so you can guarantee that the things you need are in place. So if you don't want to change your version because a bunch of crap deprecated, you don't, right? You just leave the version the way it is. JavaScript you can't control because that's the client. They're the ones downloading the browsers. They're the ones getting influenced to download certain things. So that's who you're accommodating. So when your JavaScript breaks, you got to go fix it. So it's something you'll be constantly maintaining. That's one downside to JavaScript. But there's so many pluses too. All right, so we've grabbed that OL. We've grabbed the children. No, we didn't grab children. We grabbed the children of the element. It's a little better. And then if you spit it out, you can see that it gives us the 7 LIs that are currently inside the first OL object. Now, if we want to verify that, we can go count. We all know how to count. DOM to index. All right, so in the index page, under the first OL, which is down here somewhere. Hello, there we are. You want to make sure there are 7 elements. No, I'm past it. There they are. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exactly the same number that I got back, right? Which should be no surprise, because as we said before, the DOM is a direct correlation to our HTML page. All right, select and store. What is with me not using D's? Select and store the properties value that contains an HTML collection. Okay, so we'll do const child nodes equals first OL dot child nodes. And we'll uncomment the next line. And there we go. We have this wonderful, very pretty node list. Ta-da! And all this is really showing is us accessing the properties of the HTML element, but you guys know how to do that now, right? Spit it out to the console, go see what stuff it has. If you don't have access to the console, the why you wouldn't, I don't know, but if you don't have access to the console, where's a very good place to go look up any of this stuff?
MDN?
Yes, MDN, 100%. W3 schools, be cautious. Sometimes W3 schools, things are wrong. MDN is always right because they submit to this. They're constantly contributing to this. They're a part of the problem, issue, solution, whatever. Yeah. All right, using a for of loop, right? For ofs allow us to iterate over what? Arrays, right? We can iterate over arrays. Using a for of loop, iterate through the children and output the text content of each child. Okay, well I can do that, but I don't want to do that. I want to use a for each loop. So let's try that first. So I'm going to take children.
For each and the next step below.
What's that? No, I know.
Okay.
I'm going somewhere with this. We're going to do children dot for each, right? What does for each take as an argument? Function. Don't all speak at once. Node. Node is just an argument. We're just giving it. This is a lambda, right? Function, or sorry, for each is passing its results into this argument here. Now we have it accessible to us in the block. That's a lambda. Is that kind of how like that teacher explained it? Like just 2 seconds flat. All right, console.log. Node.text content, we'll say. Okay. Keep your eye very close on the screen over here. I'm going to save. Kablooey! Children.forEach is not a function at main.js. What? But we all know that arrays usually have for each on them. We've done for each on things that we've selected back with query selector. However, the problem is this. HTML collection, which is what that is, what this particular thing is. And we can see that if we were to take children.constructor.name. It's an HTML collection. Okay, so I can go to HTML collection and start typing in for each, and I get undefined. And it's telling me it's undefined, which means this function that I want to access is not available to me. I have no access to it. It is not a thing. It's actually not even just not like it's not just unavailable. It's not a thing. It's not a part of the object HTML collection. So that's one downfall to the HTML collections. Next week when we do prototyping, we're going to give the big old FU to that, and we're going to write our own for each for the HTML collection, because we can. We can just create our own and add it in. But for now, we're going to abide by the rules. So let's do ourselves a favor, and we're going to rewrite this. We're going to use a for of loop this time. So for let child of children console.log child.text content. And that is perfectly valid. That is okay. It's like, yeah, you can use me like an array. That's totally fine. Not that it has much of a choice because it's not a part of the thing. The for of loop doesn't care whether HTML collection wants to be used that way. It doesn't get a choice. It just gets used that way. It's a bad relationship. All right, child nodes. Child nodes. Well, we don't want to stumble into the for each issue again, right? We want to come out smelling like daisies, so let's make sure that that exists. So we can type in child nodes inside our console, and we'll start to type in for each, and oh, we get this happy little F. See? It's a drunk F. It's leaning forward. It's drunk F. And if I hit enter, yeah, there's a function definition there. So we are good. As long as we have a function definition, we are okay. So let's finish typing it out. For each. Function. Node. Now I type in function all the time, but if you're quite happy with the arrow functions, please use them, right? Get in the habit of using them.
Can you write it out as
I will. I will write it out with an arrow function. There we go. That's the first one with the regular one. Now I'll write it out with the arrow function. Child nodes dot for each. We'll even do it in one liner. Node. There you go. Yeah, I like it. It's so clean. Yeah.
Can you put up like curly brackets after the arrow? Oh, if you want to do
Yeah. If we wanted to write that again, here's the third way we can write it. We can do with the curly braces, like so.
You're
And then we can also do it with the parentheses, like so. Sorry, what did you say?
So if you add the braces, can you do multi-line?
Oh.
With the feather?
Yeah, you certainly can. Yeah, so if you wanted to do it with the braces and move to the next line,
With like multiple stages.
and you can do doo-doo. Yeah, arrow functions are fantastic. We haven't actually learned the most important part of arrow functions, which is that wonderful context of this, which we're going to look at next week when we do prototypes, and why arrow functions are so fantastic when it comes to working with this.
I've been coming across this so much in videos. I can't wait to recover it.
I say this a lot.
In languages like C++.
What's that?
Is it connected in languages like C++? Instead of using this, you can just
Use the arrow operator? Yes. In C++, you can use the arrow operator. No. Yes and no. I think that was the intention. However, the problem is that inside ES6, it's this fat arrow, but in C++, it's the thin arrow, right? And all that's doing is it's syntactic sugar. Underneath the hood, that is an operator that is so ridiculous. It's an operator that is dereferencing the first part and then passing it through. Because this inside, so everything in C++ is, every object, everything that's not a variable is passed by reference, right? So when you reference this, because it's passed by reference, and references are only addresses in memory, the only way you can access it is by dereferencing it. And nobody wants to do this shit, because this is annoying. Just so I can go. Nobody wants to do that. That's so annoying. It's so much easier just to do, and then whatever my method or property is. Yeah. And it's funny because PHP does this. That's their format. They don't use dot syntax. Java uses dot syntax. You guys don't have pointers in Java that do. You can't access memory at a specific. Yeah. All right. That is it for that. We are going to complete lab 2. So some of you already kind of like jumped ahead and completed, and that's fine. Just take an extra long dinner. You have a half hour in total to complete it. So actually, just because we're running behind, why don't we change that to 20 minutes, just so that we can catch up a little bit. Because I don't want to get too far behind. Let's open up the lab. All right. So part 2 of the lab. I need the lab. There you go. Part 2 of the lab is this section right here. Select and store my favorite card div element. Iterate through the first node list and change the background color of each element. Okay. Iterate through the second node list and change the text to uppercase. Tell you right now, 5 and 6, you can copy and paste and just change out the one line of logic. Create a new object with your first name as the object name. So creating objects is also inside that main.js. Add a property called favecard. Add the following as text content to my favorite card element. And that's it, and then you're done. So yeah, feel free to chat and work together. Here we go. Okay, so now we're recording. That's good. Go ahead and open up whatever IDE it is that you're working in. You're pulling down that starter file that I just showed, these starter files here. I'm usually more prepared than this. There we go. There. All right. Just ignore the file folder that says Prism. Prism is a syntax highlighter. I'm trying something a little different just to make things a little clearer for you to see what we're doing. I can't remember what I called that file. CD starter objects.
Starter objects dash part 1.
There we go. So we're going to start on starter objects part 1. Yes. So you'll notice that Prism is actually what it's doing is this cool thing where you see the syntax highlighting inside the code snippets. Prism does that for me. It actually syntax highlights those code snippets. which is kind of cool, so it's a little easier for you guys to read the code in those blocks. It was working even better than that before, but it seems to not work so well when the screen is this small. Hey, it looked nicer before. Oh, that's balls. Alright, whatever. It is as it is. Can't do everything. Alright, let's open up the main.js. We don't really care about the index file so much. So last week we actually talked a lot about objects, but we looked at the DOM, right? We looked at how objects are used inside the DOM. So that's you consuming objects, right? It's you going out and using objects that already exist. And that's easy enough. You understand the concept that objects have properties, objects have methods. Those are concepts you understand, right? All objects have properties, all objects have methods. But I mean, what good is that if you can't make your own objects, right? Because you want to be able to make your own objects. And if you look at this over, it says objects, like in most languages, are a way for us to encapsulate code under an idea, right? We encapsulate it under a namespace. That's literally what we're doing. But the concept is to encapsulate it under an idea, so that that class or object represents that particular idea, right? And we do that quite a bit. You guys have probably done the bank example where you create a bank, and the bank has accounts, and the accounts have checking and savings. Really? That's good. Have you done fun things then? Like actually fun examples? Still boring examples?
Yeah.
Right.
Like student stuff.
Ah, okay.
Students' classes.
Well, you guys have done relational databases.
Yep.
Right? Relational databases work on the same kind of idea where you have this parent table, right? And then you have these children table that relate to the parent table, right? Because you might have a person, but that person could have several accounts, and those several accounts could connect to other accounts, right? The whole idea of hierarchical data is not unknown, and that's why classes exist. When Bjorn Strusa created C++, it was to meet a particular demand in business. That's the reason why you have classes. It's because big business people who don't understand coding wanted to better understand code. So they wanted things to represent their business strategies inside the code. And that's where classes came from, because we were able to basically namespace these business ideas. We use them for a lot more than that, right? Like player 1, player 2, model 1, model 2. We have a lot more control over them. They are a really good idea that came from, the business douchebag side. So objects are fantastic. We use objects all the time, and JavaScript is an object-oriented programming language, as I've stated several times, and as I'm sure by this point you fully realize how object-oriented this language is, right? Because you have properties and methods on almost every single thing you look at. You've started to grasp it. So you're probably starting to get to the point where you want to create your own. The thing about JavaScript that we need to understand is that when we say methods, that's not entirely true, because JavaScript objects have properties. But a property can have any kind of value. It doesn't matter what it is. We don't have to predefine it because JavaScript is duck type. You guys know what duck type is? Walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, must be a duck. That's basically what JavaScript is. It means that it's implied. Everything is implied. So when you assign a variable that is a string, it automatically is like, cool, I'm a string. Good. Wah, wah, I'm a string. And then if you say, nope, now you're 5, JavaScript goes, oh, okay, I guess I'm a number now. I identify as a number. And then then you can be like, you're an array. And, okay, cool, this is Christmas. Now I'm an array. Or you're an object. Okay, well, now I'm an object. Don't objectify me. And or you can give it a function definition. It's not a function, though. It's not a method. It is a property that has a function definition, which is interesting, right? Because in C++ or Java or any other programming language that you work with, you actually define methods, like you physically go in, write your method, and that is a method. This thing is a method, right? But in JavaScript, all it is just text, really. It's just a string. The thing is, though, is as soon as you add those wonderful things to the end of it, it becomes a function call, right? So in JavaScript, it's all properties. And you guys have already done that. Last week, we wrote a greeting. And that greeting allowed you to be able to write some text out to the screen. But at the end of the day, all it was just text that you wrote. You just wrote text. You gave it a function definition, which was just the value to that property. All right. So properties are basically, in classes in object-oriented programming, properties are basically descriptive words, adjectives, right? We usually say that they're adjectives. They're describing something about the class, right? How fast this thing can go, what color its hair is, what color its eyes are, stuff like that. What type of animal this thing might be. Those are all adjectives, right? They're descriptive words. Those are adjectives. The class is usually like a noun. It's usually representation of a person, place, or thing. That's usually what classes are. Methods would be what? If we're following along the grammar analogy. I know, I can hear it loud and clear. You, Sean, and your grammar. What?
Verbs.
Verbs, yeah, exactly. They're verbs. Because they're actions, right? They're things you do. They're moving. They're things that do some functional thing, right? Those are usually methods. Actually, they're always methods unless you're coding weirdly. So like I said, JavaScript object properties, a little bit different. Objects are an integral part to JavaScript. In JavaScript, almost absolutely everything is an object. Even if it's not an object when it first starts, the second you assign a value to it, the second you mutate it in any way, it becomes an object. Almost instantly. That's very cool, I say. If you consider that objects give you properties and methods, right? So these wonderful things that you've defined that you're using inside JavaScript all have these cool little properties and methods. And you should love properties and methods because properties and methods are giving you tools, right? They're adding more tools to your arsenal. You don't have to load in a whole library just to deal with strings because there's already so many properties and methods on the string object that you can access right out of the gate, right? And there's so many properties and methods that are on the numbers, right? And stuff like that. So that's really cool because you don't have to convert this stuff to objects they already are. All right. So let's look at what properties a variable with a string has. So if we were to output a variable, write this little snippet of code here. You know what? I'll copy and paste it in the browser. Just copy that. J, B, bam. There's the properties and methods that we have available to us. You might be like, well, those don't look like very cool properties. I mean, what kind of property is 1, 2, 3? Does anybody know what those are? They are properties. Does anybody know what they are, though?
Indices.
What's that?
Indices.
Yeah, exactly. They're indices because strings, as I've said 100,000 times already, are what? Technically character arrays. That's all they are. They're just big arrays of characters. Each one of these things, S, H, A, U, N, they're all just characters. You put them all together, you have a character array that we now nickname string, right? But it's still just an array. So that's exactly what it's saying. If you were to count all the letters inside this, you will get 13. You might be like, well, no, that's not true because there's only 12 letters. Yeah, you're right, but there's 13 characters because space is a character. It's actually technically one of the ASCII characters. So space shows up as a character, and we also get the wonderful length, right? Length is a property of string. It actually returns back the value of how long our string is. In this particular scenario, how long is our string? Anybody want to guess? What's that? 14, that's correct. Because it doesn't start at 0. It indexes at 0, right? But it's 14 characters long. All right. Let me close that. So pretty cool, but we're not done yet. Let's look at properties from our person object that we created the other day. We have multiple properties. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, but we're limited. We have multiple properties inside this. We have name, age, interests, and like I said, these, even though they're function definitions, are properties, right? We have a property called talk that has a function definition, and we have a property called walk that also has a function definition in it. So in total, we have 6 properties as a part of that object. Ooh, there we go. So I wrote a nice little thing in there saying talk and walk aren't properties, they're methods. But no, that's not true. As we just said, properties are simply named values. And yes, I keep saying it over and over again because I really want you to lock it in your brain. Because if you understand that a function definition is just a function definition, you can do a lot of powerful shit. if you grasp that concept. Okay? As soon as you start to understand that that's all that thing is, you're going to be pushing it and moving them around all over your code because you grasp that concept that all it is a function definition. Accessing object properties. I think I missed a step. Oh, it doesn't say the following. We need to create the following object. So let's create this wonderful object. We'll store it in a thing called letPerson because we're going to add extra things to it. Because I'm modifying the object, that's the reason why I'm using let and not const. Because I can't modify the object if I use const, right? Because const means non-mutable. And I'm going to give it a name. I would recommend you give it your name. I'm going to give it my name. I mean, you can give it my name if you really want to. I'm going to give it some interests. I'm going to give it the interest of programming, Diablo, and cage fighting. Not watching, participating. Talk. Talk is a function definition, so I'm going to say function. And what's cool is my browser or my IDE actually is like, oh, that's something different. I'm going to color that a little differently because it seems like it's something different. But it's not different, right? It is just another value. There's no difference between it versus the array above it or anything like that. They're just values, right? I'm just going to do a console.log. ARM39. Okay. I do, yeah. So I remember. Function. There we go. Here's a little bit of game programming for you. Pos x plus equals 5. There you go. That's us walking. I mean, that's us walking if we glided across the floor. At exactly 5 pixels at a time. So why don't we output the properties on the screen, because understanding how to do that is kind of cool. It's an interesting concept, so we'll do that. So I'm gonna create a variable called let obj props. I just love it. Sounds like a rapper's name. Obj props. It's gonna be my rapper name. Object dot get own property names. That's a mouthful. That's the one thing I've noticed about JavaScript methods and stuff that are out there. They're like ridiculously long. Like the synthesizer one is like 40 characters for a method name. It's insane. All right, it only takes one argument, and that is the object that you want to grab from. So to better understand this object, this thing here is, for lack of a better word, the class. It's actually called an interface, but we'll say class. This is the class. And we're calling a method on this class called getOwnPropertyNames, and we pass it an object. You can, and because almost absolutely everything in JavaScript is an object, you can literally put variables in here, you can put a random string in there, you can put whatever you want in there, and it will tell you what properties it has available to it. And you might be asking the question, well, what if I want to see all the methods? To which JavaScript doesn't have methods. It's properties. Properties with values, function definitions. Pay attention. So once we output that, we get name, age, interest, talk, and walk, which are our 5 properties, right? Pretty cool-ish. All right, accessing object properties. That's something we want to do quite often, right? We create an object. We want to be able to access the properties that are in the object, obviously. That's the whole point, right? In order to access the properties of an object, it's really simple. I'm going to output the person name and the person age. And all I have to do is just call the name of the object, which is person, right? It's the variable name that I assigned to. Dot. And my IDE is kind of nice. It automatically has indexed this page as I've been writing. And it's taken properties and methods I defined, and it's added them into its index database. And so now they become a variable to me when I hit dot. Right? If you're using Visual Studio Code, it does that as well. So now I can see all the different things I have available to me. It even tells me information about it, like age is a variable, interest is a variable, name is a variable, and talk and walk are functions. It tells me a little bit of information, so I know what I'm accessing. But I want age. And I guess it makes sense to console log that so we can actually see it. Console.log. And I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to make the top one name, actually. There we go. Oh, actually, I'm putting those in the wrong spot. My apologies. How the heck do you create the... Oh, right. Nope. I forget things. Too many OSs that I've been working in. There we go. I'm going to put them here, not in step 3. So that's one way for us to access properties. The other way for us to access them, which is really, really handy, is as an index name. Like so. And the benefits to that is now I can use dynamic naming. So I can create some properties in there and dynamically access them just by passing in an index name as a string. That's really, really handy. That's known as metaprogramming. Kind of handy. So one big thing there, though, is note, dot syntax is without quotes. Don't wrap quotes around name and age and call dot whatever those are because it will break. If you need to pass a string as a way to refer to that particular index, then you just use the square brackets and write a string in it. There we go. All right, let's populate this following structure, this name, age, interest, bio structure that I've created here. That is step 3. All right, let's first grab the structure. The structure is called person name. Sorry, that's one of the elements in it. I'm going to use that wonderful query selector that you guys should be so used to by this point. Person name. And then I'm going to set its value to be person.name, right? So I'm going to say person name, and what property do I want to access in order to change the text? That's right, text content. Equals, because it's not a function, right? Person.name, yes.
Is there a possibility to make it without declaring the person name and the person age and person interests object, like constant person name, without the person?
Sorry, what do you mean?
Can you like just get take the person object and
This thing?
no,
Or our actual person object?
yeah, actual person object.
Yeah.
And like write the name, age, and interests. to it. Oh wait, we gotta bin object.
Yes. What we're doing is we're taking our object in JavaScript, and we're taking its values and starting to add them into our HTML. That's the idea.
Okay.
Yeah. We could definitely write a function that would make this a lot simpler because we are doing a lot of redundancy. A function would make that a lot simpler. Challenge yourself, write yourself a function. All right. We're going to do the same thing with the age. Const person age equals document.query selector. Hashtag person age. Hashtag person age. It's trending. And then I'm going to do the same thing. Person age.text content is equal to person.age. And you might be like, well, Sean, we know how to do this. We learned this last week. We learned how to select things from the DOM last week. We learned how to change their values last week. But, you know, practicing doesn't hurt, right? Practicing definitely helps. But in the interest of time, if you want to do the next one, feel free. Just keep in mind that it is an array. So if you call to string on it, they'll just be comma separated, right? So if you just assign them to text content, that immediately calls to string on it, and they'll just be comma separated, which is fine. Or you can just copy the code that's right here and do that. Okie-doke. All right. Accessing the functions is done the same way as accessing any property because, again, they're just properties. The only thing that makes it really execute or invoke or call or whatever word you want to use is this wonderful thing right here, right? Those wonderful parentheses, the half moons. You see me in the hall, go like this. It's our new sign. All right. You use the parentheses because it tells JavaScript, the interpreter, to, and if I could say that, that's sounding like I've done hard drugs all day. It tells the interpreter to use the parentheses, right? It tells it to execute it. It tells it to call it. So let's create a new function definition for our person. Right now we have talk and walk. We're going to create a new one in there. So let's scroll back up to person. Add a comma after walk and call it bio. Function. Bunk. And we'll return whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to create a couple of dirty backticks and write, hello, I am, mood lighting, Sean, and I'm a 39-year-old computer programmer. Ta-da. There we go. You're probably like, Sean, wait, we have this. We could use this and make this cleaner. I agree. And you should use this. Get in the habit of using this. But I did this for a reason. What's that? Yeah, without all of this, yeah. We are going to still do it. We're just going to do it later. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So can I add a property like after finding it, or should
Yep.
do I have to? How do you do that?
No, you can totally add a property after. We're getting ahead of ourselves. I'm going to show you. All right. Number 5, set the person bio text content to read value of the bio property function. So up here, we have this bio, right? And we want to actually spit the word bio out there. So down here, I'm going to write, on line 5, I'm going to write, const person bio equals document dot query selector. That all stays the same, right? Hashtag person bio. We're just grabbing an HTML element that happens to have the ID person bio. Our script does not care what HTML element is returned. Just that's your element we're returning. Then we're going to call person bio.text content. So we're going to access the text content property of our element. And we're going to make it equal to the return value of our function. So person.bio with parentheses. That now calls it. And if you did that correctly, you should, under your bio, see whatever you wrote. A lot of students write things verbatim, like exactly as I write it. So I bet you there's probably about 10 people out there that wrote, hello, I am Sean, and I am a 39-year-old programmer, which is funny. Sometimes I like to screw around with people, and so I just type random crap and make you guys write it because you're just following along and not paying attention. You should go back and look at stuff because I probably have done it a couple of times.
Yeah, like PHP sense.
Yeah, like things like that. Yeah. So that's how we call a function. Not very hard, right? It's no different than calling age or name. Like we can call .bio. That's totally legit. And I can hit Command S. And if I come up here, I get function. And I can see my function definition. There's my function definition. But the second I add the parentheses and hit save, it changes it to the actual return value string, right? So pretty cool stuff. Cool. So accessing properties within the object internally involves using the very important keyword this, or single quotes, depending on how you want to do it, right? Don't wrap your this in quotes, though. In objects, this represents the owner of the object. It's who ever currently owns the object. That is not necessarily as important as where we're writing this right now. It becomes more important when we start nesting functions and stuff like that, because the context of this changes depending on where you're located. So anyways, we'll look at that more in depth next week when we do prototypes. But suffice to say that when we call this within inside of our object, it is referring to the object itself. Okay? And we can actually demonstrate that. If you scroll up to where your object is, and just before the bio, or just like inside the function definition, just write console.log this, with no quotes, nothing around it. And what you should see show up inside your console is an object, right? And if you click open the little thing, oh look, it's our object, right? There's all its properties, its functions. There's that cool little F. We just created something that actually showed that little drunk F. So that's neat. So this, as you can see, is literally this. It's all of that. This is that. And that is this. You confused yet? That's the important thing to understand. This is the object that is currently contained inside. Okay? And we are contained inside this object, this whole big object. So that's what gets returned there. Now we can use that to our advantage, because what we can do is instead of having, hello, I am Sean, I am a 39-year-old computer programmer, when I have all of these as properties already inside my object, and at some point I may want to change some of these values, right? Like when I turn 40, I want to change it to, well, I don't, but I want to change it to 40. You know, and as I get older, my interests may change. I may like line dancing or whatever. And I need to add that in. I definitely want my statement, my biography, to be more dynamic, right? I don't want it to be so locked down. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do, I already wrapped it in dirty backticks. If you haven't wrapped your statement in dirty backticks, you need to change those to dirty backticks, okay? Because we want that wonderful thing called string interpolation. There's our little structure for string interpolation. And how would I access my name property?
This dot name?
This dot name, that's exactly it. This represents the object we are currently in. Dot name is a property of that object. Go ahead and flip those out for the other ones as well. I'm going to wrap 39 with a parsing block and call this.age inside of it. And then I'm just going to take computer programmer, wrap my parsing block around it, and I'm going to go this dot interests dot, because it's an array and I don't want to just call a string on it. Actually, no. I'm just going to reference one of the indexes. Actually, I'm going to do that one. There. So now if I go look at my bio, hello, I am Sean, and I am a 39-year-old Diablo. Oh no, it's the El Diablo. Can't remember what movie that's from.
It's a video.
Oh, is that from a video? Oh, Diablo is a video game, yeah. I'm getting a Switch for Christmas. I'm so excited.
Hey, Sean,
Yes.
Yep.
what do you think about Immortal?
I don't know. I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait before I slag on it. Oh, you're slagging on it now. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to wait before I get mad.
Sean, they were teasing 4 for so long.
I know. They just need to bring 4. Yeah.
It's been 11 years.
All right.
So messy.
We got it. Let's go back to here. All right. Using the this keyword, replace Sean 39 a computer programmer. Well, we did that. Hopefully you guys replaced your own thing. So Steve now says, hello, I am Steve. I am a 39-year-old computer programmer. All right.
Wait, what?
Step 6. We did step 6. And we put it in the wrong spot. All right. Step 7. No, we did that too, didn't we? We're going to add step 8. So this leads back to, who was it that asked me if we can add properties on the fly? Yes, right. We can have properties on the fly. We can have functions on the fly, which is fantastic. So we're going to kind of jump the gun a little bit, and we're going to do it right here. First, I just need to access the object I created, right? So person. Person, that's my object, right? And I know it's my object because when I hit dot, it's like, hey, you want to do some stuff. You want to add some functions. You want to add some variables. The thing is I'm not locked to using these. I can create some. I can create them whenever I want. It doesn't matter. I'm totally in control. So I'm going to create a new property. And I'm going to call my new property to HTML. That's what I'm going to call my property. You guys remember property example, example click event, or whatever? All those things I created, and then you guys wrote them in your test accidentally? That's all I was doing. I was just creating them dynamically on the fly. Let's make it equal to a function. We're going to give our function a argument. Sorry, a parameter. I know better. I'm sorry. And then we'll give it the function body. So I'm going to say let div equal document dot create element div. So I'm going to create a new DOM element, a new div DOM element. Then we're going to do div.textContent. So we're going to add some content into this div. I don't actually know if I can do that, because that would not be... We can try this.bio, but I don't think it's going to work. Because, like I said, this is in context of the object it's currently in. However, because we're assigning it to person, we're not technically in the object. We're in this function definition. So I'm pretty sure this is going to blow up and just be like, nope, you can't do that. Actually, you know what? I am 100% confident it's going to blow up. So let's change this to person.bio. I am very confident it's going to blow up. Somebody else try it. Did it actually return back the bio? Or did it just set undefined? You haven't used the function yet.
I was using your Git stuff.
Oh.
You use this and that. With this and that.
Oh, but when I first wrote this, I literally wrote it inside the object.
Yeah.
I'm only doing it for this gentleman over here because he asked. Yeah. Document.query selector. So now we're actually going to go grab the selector that we passed, and we're going to append our div element. Kind of a handy little function. Allows us to add our bio wherever we want. Actually, I have to make a function like this tomorrow for adding tracking pixels to websites. Not maliciously. They copy the snippet and paste it. It's totally on the up and up. All right. Last call. Last call the new to HTML method externally, passing the hashtag to HTML bio as the argument, which looks like this: person.toHTML, and now it comes up as part of our list of hinted functions. Hashtag to HTML bio. And if you save and it works, it should say, "Hello, I am Sean. I am a 39-year-old Diablo." Now I'm just going to try this. Oh, that is interesting. I didn't realize that worked like that. That's cool. You can actually use this inside there. It does maintain the object. That's cool. That actually blows my brain. I don't understand how that works. All right. I'll find out. Let's just take advantage of it. That's still kind of cool. All right, creating new object properties, which is what we just did. We can create new object properties directly in here, right? But you can understand how that would get a little bit tedious. You create your object. Generally, what a lot of people will do if they're creating an object literal like this, or it kind of looks like a struct, right? You guys have used structs before? No? Oh. You have, yeah. Basically, what a struct is it's usually just an object meant to keep a bunch of properties so that you can kind of like move it around. But because it's namespace, you don't have to worry about naming collisions. So you just use that to like pass it around your program, and then you can use its properties in it. So this is kind of what this looks like. It looks a little bit like a struct. Anyways, so we've got all these things in here. We can keep adding them in here, but if we didn't want to do that, if we wanted to dynamically set properties of our object, we have that ability, which I just showed you with the .2 HTML. The .2 HTML shows you that we can literally define another property and give it a value without having to add it to the object, the original object definition, right? And that's really handy because it's things that you might do quite often. Like, for example, if I want to do person.hasPets equals true. That is now a property that is a part of our person. And I can prove it, as I often like to do. Here we go. Like, I mean, you guys are likely not doubting me, but maybe you are. Maybe there's a naysayer out there. If I spit out my person, you should never eat people. You can see has pets right here, and it is equal to true. Let's do another one. Except for now I can't see all the things. Let's do person.petCount. So add a new property called petCount. So I'm going to do person.petCount. And please be abstract. If you don't have pets, set it to false. And set it to true. I have 3 pets. Sally, DJ, and Murray. Which they don't have normal pet names, so people think I'm talking about people. And I'm like, Murray is the biggest asshole you've ever met. I'm talking about the dog, because he gets into everything. They're golden retrievers. If anybody's had a golden retriever, they know what I'm talking about. Yeah, so anyways, there's person pet count equals 3, right? So I have 3 pets, and I have a pet. And then we can spit this out to a new method, which we just showed you with the 2 HTML. But let's do another one. Why not? Person.pet to HTML equals function selector. So we're going to create basically the same method we created earlier. Let div equals document dot create element. Very handy method for creating HTML elements. If this dot has pets, you see, you're right, Virginia. I already did do this once. Yeah, I know. I think you're better than me. Div.textContent equals, let's do some dirty backticks here. Why not? I'm going to use my string interpolation. This.name has string interpolation. This.pet count pets. Now I'm going to create an else statement because that totally makes sense, right? If you don't have pets, let's give a different sentence. Div.textContent equals some dirty backticks. $. I don't know what's happening here with things. This.name doesn't have any pets. And then last but not least, document.query selector. There we go. Dot append. Ladiv. I can't remember where that actually spits out. Oh, I see. We still have to actually call it. I'll scroll up a little bit because I realize it's kind of buried down there. Step 13, the last, we're going to call our new method that we created. We call it the same way we called the last one. It's just person.pet to HTML. And then we give it a selector. And I have a div on the page with the ID, do you got pets? That's good grammar. And then it spits out Sean has 3 pets. This object that we created is known as an object literal. Because we literally created an object. No, that's not why. Actually, that probably is why. The problem with it, and you're going to see this in the next part here, the problem with this kind of object is it's very finite, right? We have one. If I want to create another one for another student, I would have to create a whole new object. I'd have to duplicate it, right? It's a lot of extra code. And then what if I had hundreds? I've got all this extra code everywhere, right? That's not really practical. These are really good when you're trying to create little nests of functionality or properties that you're only going to really use once, but you want namespace. That's where they're handy. They're handy for options. So when you're passing arguments into a function, passing an object into the function instead of parameter after parameter after parameter can be a lot more convenient. When you guys start working with plugins for JavaScript or jQuery and stuff like that, you're going to see that quite often because it's just a lot more easier to manage settings and options and stuff like that by using objects than it is to create 35 parameters that you now have to remember the order of, right? That's ridiculous. It's much easier just to allow you to pass an object. So you'll see that quite often. So anyways, why don't we take 10 minutes. We'll have a break. Shit. 1 second. It's the only problem with being slightly behind. I feel like this is a hefty one.
Yeah, very good.
All right.
It's got some heft.
Okay. I'm leaving one class open as a filler class. So I will do you a solid. We will do the first part of the lab. I will extend the due date for this lab to the following. And we can work on the lab, and then also I can give you some assignment support. Some assignment support. Because we are so far past the due date of when the assignment was originally due that I'm hoping we have at least better chunks done by this point.
Still talking about assignment 1.
Yes. Actually, I'm going to be really fucking nice. You guys are going to go for a 10-minute break, and then when you come back, I'm going to rip open the assignment, and we're going to talk from step 1 down, and we'll correct what I've screwed up in my thing, and we'll go through it together. Okay? Yeah, for assignment 1, we'll go through it step by step. I'll have to do it on Thursday for them as well, but we'll do that. So take a 10-minute break so you can get a drink and whatever, and then come back and we'll do that. I'm going to ask that we don't ask too many questions so we can get through as much as possible in 40 minutes. But I don't know if we'll get through the whole thing in 40 minutes, but we'll get pretty close. So select and store elements. Select and store elements is exactly the DOM stuff that we talked about last week. I generally make it that each one of these things is the exact hashtag name that it is inside the index file. So if you were to open up your index file, because you will need that too, your index file, as you can see, there's an ID message, ID game board, ID score, and ID cards. Incidentally, if you hold down Command or Control, you can select each one of these like this. Hit Command C. Want to see something really cool? Look at my 4 pointers. Oh, hold on. Pointer 1, pointer 2, pointer 3, pointer 4. We'll just make sure they're all up against the side there. I need to do all of these at the same time, so const. There we go. Document.query selector. They're all hashtag. Command V. There we go. 4 selectors written at once. Hence why recording this is really awesome. Because now you can pause it to see that. But tell me that's not fucking cool. I mean, you write 4 lines in like 30 seconds? That is fucking cool. All right, so I created an array of cards. Now, some of you have been doing spades and clubs and hearts and diamonds, and that's totally fine, but that was not a requirement. Like, not at all. I actually was really surprised at how many people tried to do that. But I think what the glitch there was is that I told you to iterate 4 times. So you were like, oh, he must mean suits. So you like put suits in. That's fine. That's totally will work. but it's not quite what I meant. So let's do step 2a. So create a function to shuffle the deck. Well, that's missing only one word. Function. All right. Create a placeholder. Can't entirely remember why I need to create a placeholder, but all right. It likely meant that. Very likely.
Yeah.
Iterate through card values 4 times. Well, that sounds suspiciously like a for loop. And we can probably get away with a, well, the key word here is 4 times, which means it's a range. So it's definitely a set number of loops. So I'm going to do that. So let I equals 0. If I is less than 4, I plus plus is likely what that means. The idea is to create 52 cards. We have 13 cards currently sitting in our array. I need to duplicate those 4 times. So I'm going to iterate 4 times. And then I'm going to take them and put them into the deck. That's all I'm really doing. If you didn't want to do that, you could literally copy and paste it 4 times. And then just create a deck of 4 levels of arrays, right? This is just a little cleaner than that. Now I'm going to do a for loop here as well. And nope, that's a conditional loop. Conditional loop means while. Definitely means while. So while card values dot length, I'm guessing, which would make sense. No idea. Select a random card from the array. Do I have a random card function?
No.
Oh, I see. I'm just doing it inline, eh?
Let
So
Yeah, let random. I'm assuming that's math dot. Oh, right. That would make sense. Dot floor dot rand.
random.
Okay. Times the length of the cards.
Yeah, card values dot. I did TMP dot length.
Card values dot length minus 1, or do I need to do that? Right, because the floor is taking care of that. All right. And then add the cards to the deck. And a lot of people got stuck on this particular part, but it's actually very simple. It's just deck dot push, like so. And you want to add the specific card. So it would be random card. Yeah.
Maybe
So
we can use the placeholder, right?
yeah, I think that's exactly what it was for, but I'm realizing there's a glitch here as well. So this will actually run forever and will never stop.
Yes.
Because this here, card values.length does not equal 0, means that we're assuming we're popping them off or doing something with them to take them off of the array. And this is not doing that. This is grabbing a random card, but it's not actually removing it from the original array.
I used splice.
Yeah.
Yeah. What does your syntax look like? Because I can't remember off the top of my head.
TMP.splice.
Is this like after the equal sign?
No, like deck dot
I'm
push
gonna use deck.push.
and then.
Oh, for deck.push, then you did what?
Underneath that one, I did a separate line.
Or maybe in the
What?
beginning it can be like
TMP.splice. Parentheses. Random card, comma 1.
dot comma.
I think then you
Right, because it's pulling back the index number. And then you're adding it to... Why are you adding it to temp?
I thought that's why you wanted temp in there.
Yeah, you are very close.
I have temp.length instead of card values.length.
Yes, card.
Yes, same.
Instead of card.
Right, that would also work, right? So now we're pushing... So what we're doing is we're grabbing the random splice card off of the random card. Where's random card?
No, but we have to.
Oh, I've done that screwed. Hold on. I'm completely confused about what I'm doing here.
Zero for random card, comma. I guess the deck will be like
I had mine as a
All right. Why is this not? Yes.
we are making a deck here, right?
Yeah.
So like what I did is like temp is equal to card values dot slice.
So you clone this.
Yeah, like I made this card values dot slice in parentheses
Yeah.
And after that, like in while loop, it was like temp dot length.
So in the while loop, you did temp.length. Where'd you do that?
Like while temp dot length is not equal to 0 instead of this. So even in the other function, it will be temp. Like in the random card thing.
Oh, I see what you're doing. So actually, this needs to move into the for loop. Yeah.
So then in random card thing, it's like math.store, math.random
Yeah.
into temp dot length.
So this would be temp.length,
Then after that, it will be deck.push,
and then deck.push.
parenthesis, temp dot splice, parenthesis, random card, comma 1. Then it will be like the square bracket 0 because it will be multi-dimensional array for deck, right? Because you'll be having 52 cards, sets of like 4 sets of 13 cards.
Right.
So it will be like
So temp.splice,
it will be
you're
like-
starting at your index number, then you're removing one element from that and putting it over.
Yeah.
So what am I doing with the square brackets?
Like it's like it will be 0 then.
What will be 0?
Because like it needs to
Okay, let's. This is one thing somebody was asking me about it. This is one thing we should be doing right off the bat. So we're going to call shuffle deck, and then we're going to console.log out the deck. And if things are working the way we're expecting them to work, then in here we will see the 52 cards that we need to see. I'm not actually seeing anything and not seeing an error. Oh, right. No. Yeah. We need to hook it up. Oops. There we go. Okay, and we're going to have a lot of issues from there below. Oh, I see why you're saying that now, yeah. Because splice is returning back the actual array thing and not just the first element.
yes, so it will be now 0.
There we go. Alrighty. And in the end, we got there. Okay, so we have our 52 cards. We're iterating 4 times over a for loop. That's all it's doing. It's just iterating 4 times because we want to create 52 cards. Then, inside here, we're creating a temp with the card values and slice 0, which does what? Does anybody remember what that does? Because we can't just make it equal. We're cloning it, right? That creates a clone of those. So it's cloning all 13 cards and storing them into there. Then, while the temp length is not equal to 0, meaning we still have some left to work through, we're going to grab one randomly. Then we're going to push it onto the deck, and we're going to splice it out of temp. This is one way to do it. The other way to do it is to actually have this method pull it off of there and pop it back, which is the way I usually do it, but I can't remember the syntax, and I'd have to go look it up. All right. So that definitely works for us. We have 52 cards. It should be, ideally, 52 cards, and hopefully there are 52 pairs, which means you should be able to clear them out, right? Okay, cool. Now we can call the shuffle deck function underneath step 2G, so I'll just take these 2 lines, boop, 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 move them down. Create an array to store 2 players. I saw a lot of issues with this as well. An array, very simple. There we go. And if you want to store information about the 2 players, you can do player 1, player 2. And incidentally, I didn't put it in here. At least I don't think I did. No, I didn't. I didn't put it in here, but you also need to store the player's score. Now that you know about objects, you could use objects to do this, right? Yeah?
So should you just not put like name of like player 1, comma score, 0?
You can do whatever you want as long as you can grab the index correctly.
Okay.
Yeah, that's totally fine. In here, I'm just going to do player score. I'm going to set it to 0 for player 1. I'm assuming player 1 is just index 0 in the array, and player 2 is index 1. Okay? Create a variable to store the current player. Let current player, and this is another place where I goofed up and I apologize. We should make this equal to null, because once they've selected 2 cards, we want to be able to go back. We want to be able to make sure that we can start and select 2 cards again, which means that needs to be null. Cool, we're actually doing okay. Create a variable to store the first selected card. So let current card equal null. Oh, no, I screwed up. Sorry. Make let current player equal 0. Make it equal to the first one. It's let current card that needs to be equal to null.
Why are we making the player 0?
It's the starting player.
Because that's an array. So 0 is number 1 and
Yeah.
1 is number 2.
So I'm using that to be able to tell what index number I'm on.
No.
Yeah. Why not? It works.
What's mine?
Don't criticize me. All right. Step 3. All right, we're going to need to uncomment all this stuff so I can figure out where I'm at. Step 4, actually. Iterate through the deck and bind a click event to each one. Well, that sounds dangerously like a for loop. I'm assuming we are going, what do we call it, card value? Of deck?
Yep.
This would be, no, I'm going to use let just to save myself some grief. This will be document.create element, and that's a div. Add a card class to the class list on the new thing. Okay, so that's going to be card L dot class list dot add. There we go. Step 3C, add a data value to the card. Okay, these are the ones that everybody had some issues with. Data set is the actual data attribute that's on HTML elements. JavaScript actually gives you access to that, which is pretty cool. This thing, data set, if I can walk right, this thing will actually create in the HTML. We would have a div data dash value equals value, whatever that's in there. That's what it's creating. It's creating this attribute inside there for us, which is kind of cool. All right, and that would be equal to the card value.
Won't it be single card?
What?
We use different terms.
Yeah. And then bind the card selected function to the click event. So that's card L. There's so many different ways you could do this. We could use onClick equals card selected, like so. That works. Nice and quick. Or you could add the event listener, either one. And I think I'm forgetting something in here. Does anybody? Oh, right. We need to append it. Append card to screen, which is a missing thing. So that's going to go on the game board. Dot append card L. And then that will append the card to the actual screen. Of course, you can't see it because you will need some styles in order to see it. Right? What we can do, though, we can add something just above that. We can actually print out the number at least. Card L dot text content equals card value. And that will at least allow us to print all of the card values out to the screen. Print card values to screen. Okay. I just want to test this and make sure it's all working, so I'm going to comment all that out. Scroll back up. Uncaught reference error, card selected is not defined. Right, card selected is not defined, so I'm just going to comment that out just so I can at least see the 52 cards on the screen. There's 52 cards on the screen. Okay, let's uncomment this again. All right. Create a function to store the logic for when a card is selected. So function, and then in here is likely the word event, or E, or EVE, whatever you want to do. check if there is a card already selected. So that sounds dangerously like an if condition. If, how are we doing that? Checking current card?
It's not equal to now.
If current card.
Did you basically
is
check
not
if?
equal to no.
Okay, that's what I thought. Compare the cards. So if current card equals event dot target dot dataset dot, or were you doing dot text content? I guess that works. All right, that works. If you use suits, you can't use text content.
I also used inner HTML, almost targeting inner HTML.
For the current card? I thought current card was just a value.
Can't it be like card element dot data set dot menu?
Yeah, you can do that too. Either one works. The only reason I think I went two directions. I think I was going to go with suits and then abandoned it and just decided on regular. That's why the dataset attribute was even there in the first place. All right, let's continue on and then I'll correct mistakes I've made. Step 6b, add a class to the two card elements, flipping them over. All right, so that's easy enough. That's just current card. Wait, why is it saying to both card? Oh, this is if they won. All right, so that would be class list dot add, right? It wants me to do them to both. All right. Add a point to the score for the current player. So that's just player score, and then in the square brackets would be the current player. And you add 1 to it, which will increment it by 1. Step 6D, tell the player to go again. Oh, right. This is message dot text content, I think. Okay. Is this just an else statement in here? Provide a fail message to the player. Message dot text content. Using a ternary, change players. Okay, so how did I do this one? It's current player equals if current player equals 1. Nope, 0. That's what it was. There we go. So that will just flip-flop. If the current player is 1, it'll switch it to 0. If it's 0, it'll switch it to 1. Just a typical ternary, which are not available in CoffeeScript for some bizarre reason. Step 6G, concatenate a message to the message element, advising player 2 that it's their turn. So again, that's just the same as before with the message.textContent. And in here, all we're going to do is add this, and it's players. Current player? Yeah, current player. And that'll pull back player 2. Your turn. Okay, and then one thing I didn't add, right after that closing curly brace there, you need to reset current card to null. Because you want to make sure you clear them in order to go over them again. Don't worry, if we run out of time, I will fix any issues and post it. All right, else, step 5b, assign the card to current card. Current card equals event.target. No, just event.target, right? No, it's event.target.textContent. Yes, that's what it would be. Event.target.textContent. Or the data value, either one. Tell the player to select another card using string interpolation. So again, that's just message.textContent. And then this 3 little blocks here will be players, current player. What was the if condition we used to check if the board was full? There's a few different ways we could do it. What way did you guys do it?
I have the,
Element count? So you did document.
so I had created a thing, let LE count equals document dot queries what are all flipped dot.
Okay. I'll just do this. It's fine. That basically grabs all the flipped cards on the page. If there's 52 flipped cards, it means every card's been flipped, which means the board is full. Check if one of the players is 1. So if player score 0 is greater than player score 1, then we do crap. Right. There's a few different ways you could do this, and I think I goofed it, but we'll do this way. Dot text content equals player. Oh, sorry, that's string interpolation. Players. Is it player or players? I forget what I did now.
Players.
All right. Copy this same thing again. Else, paste it. If player score, change it around. 1, 0. Go copy this wonderful thing. There we go. Else, paste it again. It's a tie. It's the only 3 possible conditions. Notice we have no errors, which is a good sign. I click 10, player 1, please select another card. Click Q, player 2, it's your turn. Click 10, select another card. Can't read property add of undefined on line 80. What to do? Oh, right. That actually makes sense. Because current card is not the actual thing. Alright. Alright, so that means current card actually on line 104 cannot be current card equals event.target. It has to be current card equals event.target, like not .target.text content. It can't be just a value, it has to be the card itself. That will keep this working. However, up here, we need to compare text content. Let's try that now. 2, bunk, 2, bunk, yay! 9, and 10. Oh, it's your turn now. 9. Is there another 9 somewhere? 9, yay! Works. Except for the score is not spitting out to the screen, which means I likely forgot to add the score to the screen, which seems like me. So what we'll do is under step 6C, add score to screen. What is it? Just score dot text content equals, and I'm going to do this so super cheap. Player score dot to string, which is super, super cheap. But 10, 10, there's my scores. 8, 8. Doo-doo. Ace, 3. Now it's player 2's turn. 10, 10. I got 1 point. It's all working. Okay, so what I'm not going to do is tell you how to take it further, because you literally have 10 minutes worth of work now. And I'm not going to teach you how to style it. You can do that on your own. Cool? Everybody happy? Nice.
Question with styling.
Yep.
Let's say if I wanted it so that if player 1 flipped these 2 cards, they were one color, and player 2